Welcome in, everyone, to another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be tackling something that I think is pretty important, and I know you're going to have some interesting things to say about it. We're talking about soft skills in education. Seems like something that everybody's talking about these days.
Yeah.
But we dug into some articles, research, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely it's hot right now, and for good reason, I think.
Yeah.
There's just so much talk about, jobs changing and what skills people really need.
Yeah. I mean, you see the headlines about all the robots taking our jobs.
Right, exactly. And then on the other side, you've got like business leaders saying, hey, schools aren't getting people ready for what's actually needed out there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a disconnect, it seems like. In fact, some of these articles, they get pretty dire. One even said, like,
Yeah.
half of all jobs in Britain could be at risk.
Wow. Yeah, it's not just a British thing either.
Right.
I mean, you see similar stuff globally. Businesses everywhere saying, hey, grads aren't coming out with what we need.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not just like the tech stuff, you know?
No, absolutely.
You'd think, oh, robots, coding, whatever. But even like healthcare,
Yeah,
which is obviously super tech heavy now.
it is.
But they're like, we need empathy. We need good communicators. Stuff that's not just about the hard technical skills.
Totally. It's like alongside all that fancy medical tech, you got to know how to talk to patients, understand different cultures.
Exactly. It's like these quote unquote soft skills. They're becoming the baseline no matter what you do. Which brings up a point. What even are these soft skills?
Oh, man.
Every article has a different list. Communication, teamwork, adaptability. One even threw in lookism. It's like we're lumping everything in.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Right.
And honestly, that's part of the problem. Research actually shows that the term's gotten so broad, it's almost meaningless.
Oh, wow.
Like, how are you supposed to teach something if no one's clear what it is? We need a much clearer picture.
So are you saying, like, we need to almost like break it down more? Instead of just saying communication, get specific.
Exactly. Some researchers are suggesting things like, instead of just communication, think about it as interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, stuff like that.
Okay, I can see that.
Then under those, you get more specific active listening versus public speaking, written communication,
Yeah.
Different beasts.
It's like when people say, oh, I want to be healthier versus I'm going to run 3 times a week.
Perfect analogy.
Right. One's vague. The other you can actually do something with.
Totally. And that's what we need with soft skills, actionable stuff, not just buzzwords. But then that brings up another point, right? It's one thing to have these neat categories, but people are messy.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, there's this example from one source I thought was really interesting. Therapist using active listening with a patient, right?
Classic soft skill.
Textbook. Builds trust, understanding, good outcome. But then they compare it to, imagine a manager just nodding along while an employee rants. Is that active listening? Technically, maybe. But without knowing why the manager's doing it.
Could be avoiding conflict, could have a plan, who knows?
Right. So same action, but totally different context, potentially different outcome. It's not just what you do, it's the why behind it.
So then how do we even begin to teach that? Not just the skills themselves, but like using them well in all these different situations.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And it's where we got to shift from teaching about soft skills to letting students actually practice them.
So more doing, less talking.
Exactly. Think about it. Debate in literature class, collaborative science experiments, actually using the skills in real situations.
That sounds kind of cool.
Right. And that's where the real learning happens. It's not just about schools, though, right? I mean, a lot of this learning happens outside the classroom, too.
Oh, for sure. Like parents, mentors, even just the community you're in, all that plays a role.
Absolutely. It really does take a village, as they say. But even when you talk about villages, like whose village are we talking about?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Right. Because there's this paper we looked at comparing how Brazil, Finland, and Vietnam approach soft skills.
Oh, wow. Okay. Different cultures, different values, all that.
Exactly. And it shapes everything, what skills they prioritize, how they teach them.
Give me an example.
So Finland, they're big on intrapersonal skills like self-awareness, managing your emotions.
Makes sense. Kind of fits their whole independent vibe.
Right. Whereas Brazil, they're more collectivist, so they emphasize collaboration, communication, that kind of stuff.
Huh. Makes you wonder, should there be like a universal set of soft skills everyone learns?
That's the debate. Like, do you go for global applicability or tailor it to each culture's needs?
Tough one, especially now with the world so interconnected.
Totally. Your coworker today could be from anywhere. But beyond that, one thing that came up a lot was, Soft skills aren't a learn it once and you're done kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, it's a lifelong process, right?
Totally. School lays the groundwork, but then life throws you curveballs. Workplaces change. You got to
Yeah.
keep adapting.
So it's not just about getting your first job. It's about having the skills to, like, navigate whatever comes next.
100%. And that ties into this idea of adaptability, a growth mindset. What's essential today might be outdated tomorrow.
Makes you think about all the talk about, like, soft skills being important for
Oh,
leaders.
definitely. It's not just about knowing your stuff anymore. It's about inspiring people, building relationships, that kind of stuff.
Emotional intelligence, all that jazz.
Exactly. One source even said, like, good leadership boils down to understanding others' needs, creating a safe space for ideas.
So it's not just nice to have. It's actually what makes teams work well.
Right. And it goes beyond traditional leadership, too. Even in super technical fields, being able to communicate, collaborate, solve problems creatively, that's what sets people apart.
So no matter what you do, these skills matter.
It's becoming the baseline.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to, okay, how do we actually weave this into education?
We talked about the what, now it's the how.
Exactly. And one source had this idea. They said instead of having soft skills as separate things, bake it into everything.
So, like, not just a workshop here and there.
Nope. Imagine a classroom where from day one, you're encouraged to debate respectfully, present ideas, get feedback, work together.
Sounds kind of utopian, but I like it.
Right. That's where these skills become second nature. But for that to happen, teachers need different tools. Students need to be active participants.
It's a whole system change. Big ask.
Requires a huge shift in mindset for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And yeah, it means investing in teacher training, giving them the resources to make it happen.
Big undertaking, but from what we've seen, it seems like it's worth it.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's not just about jobs, it's about creating people who are ready for life.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
We started worried about robots, and now we're talking about, like, what makes us human.
Totally. And that's what makes this whole thing so important. It's not just about skills for a job, it's skills for being a person in the world.
And it feels like that's where education needs to head.
Yeah.
A lot of the sources were saying, ditch the old ways, we need something totally different.
Yeah, one was super interesting. They were like, stop just teaching about these skills, create a place where kids live them.
So, like, not just a class on communication, but actually having to communicate all the time.
Right. Working in teams, solving problems, giving presentations, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And that would require, I mean, it's a huge shift.
Huge. Teachers need to know how to do this. Kids need to buy in.
But are there schools actually doing this? I mean, is it even possible?
There are. One example they talked about was in Denmark, this school that's all project-based learning.
Oh, cool. Like real-world stuff.
Yeah, the kids work on these big projects, got to use all their skills from different subjects even.
And it works.
Seems like it. Kids are learning more, they're more excited, more confident. It's pretty amazing.
It's encouraging to hear that it's not just like a pie-in-the-sky idea.
Definitely. And it's gaining traction, not just in that one school, but in a lot of places.
Makes you hopeful, like maybe we're actually on the right track here.
I think so. And before we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with something to think about.
Always love a good brain teaser.
Imagine you could build the perfect school from scratch. What's the one thing you'd change to make sure every kid graduates with these skills, not just the knowledge, but the whole package?
Wow, that's a good one. And it really highlights what we've been talking about, right? It's not just about test scores or getting a job. It's about equipping people to actually thrive in the world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a fascinating look. It's something I think we'll all be talking about for a long time to come.